Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Dear Profiler Pat, where you ask me questions, ask for some advice, and I give it. And I always hope it helps you and anybody else who is viewing the channel. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. Check my playlist for the different areas of life you might like to get some advice on. And if you want to send me a question, send it to profilerpatbrown@gmail.com and put in the subject line, Dear Profiler Pat, so I don't overlook it. All right. Now, this question. This wasn't actually sent to me, but I see this over and over again on Dear Abby's and Dear whomever's. And I'm always surprised that the answer isn't as strong as I would like the answer to be. Now, the question is, Dear Profiler Pat, if someone were asking me this question, if the groom smashes wedding cake into my face, is it a bad sign? Well, I can tell you it's not a good sign. I mean, sometimes it's just hard to understand why anybody thinks that this is okay. Now, just to be fair, I will say there's a 10% of the time when maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe the groom and the bride are a bunch of jokers. Maybe this is their way of life. Maybe they throw pies in each other's faces and they're having a silly wedding where she's dressed in a $10 dress and, they're doing silly things and neither one of them gives a crap. Then you're on the same page. But the majority of the time when this question is asked, the bride is not happy about the cake being smashed in her face. So this is the problem. First of all, when you get married to someone, and I always recommend you should know them for 2 years before you get married, you should be marrying a person who loves you, cares about you, understands you, and would never do anything that would upset you, humiliate you, ruin the day for you. That person would never do that. So you want to get to know them well enough to know they're not going to be smashing cake into your face. Now, what happens when that does happen? Well, some women who have said this has happened to them have very elegant weddings. They have a very, very fancy dress. I mean, when I got married, my dress cost $70. Nothing was going to greatly harm it. And I did my own makeup, so not a big deal. You know what I mean? I still wouldn't have liked it, and it still would have meant something, and I'll get to that. But here's a woman. She's in a gorgeous dress. She spent all this time finding the perfect dress for her wedding. And then she's gotten professional makeup done and her hair done. And here she is at this moment, which is supposed to be a loving moment between the bride and groom, where when they cut the cake, which is supposed to be a gorgeous cake as well, something very special that you picked out that represents this beautiful day. And then you cut the cake kindly, and then you hold the cake up gently if you're going to feed each other. Not every wedding has people feeding each other cake. It's not kind of my thing personally. I just rather get my own cake. But I get the point. It's a gentle feeding to the other person to say, I am now your husband, and I am going to make sure that you're fed and happy the rest of your life. That's what it's supposed to represent. And so gently he offers the cake, and she takes the bite of it, and it's a sweet thing. And she picks up the cake, and she does the same to him. And it's a loving moment. And if you're going to take photos of it, it'll be pretty. There'll be pretty photos in the wedding book. But if that person, let's say the groom, usually it's the groom that we see this issue on, and it's concerning that we're not usually seeing the bride doing this to the groom, although I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but we're a lot of times seeing the groom doing this to the bride, which is concerning in the sense that he is, I know it's an old-fashioned concept that the man is supposed to care for the woman, and of course we have weddings these days that have 2 women and 2 men. And I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just talking just the traditional thing. And I say it can apply to anybody in any circumstance. Because if 2 women are marrying and they're smashing cake into each other's faces, and men are smashing, again, is an issue, generally speaking. But in the traditional sense, there is the concept that the man is supposed to be protecting his wife because of his so theoretically stronger physique and possibly stronger income. And she's going to be having the babies, and she might have to be taking care of the babies, and then he's going to have to protect them. I mean, it's an old-fashioned concept, but I'm not, it just, that kind of is the way the thinking goes, so that the man is supposed to be protecting her. So here's the beautiful bride that he's finally won her heart, and the day of their marriage, and here she is in all her glory, and he takes a cake and smashes it in her face. Ruins her makeup, ruins her dress, makes the cake a mess, ruins her hair. He thinks it's funny to humiliate her, to take all her beauty and destroy it in front of everyone, and to make a mockery of this beautiful moment. What is he thinking? What kind of person does that to the woman that finally have just declared their undying love for, and then they do this the minute they've taken the vows? Very concerning. I want to add a second one here. Some women have actually said to their beloved, their betrothed, when it comes to eating that cake, you better not smash it in my face. They even tell them that ahead of time because they're afraid, because they've heard these stories. Don't you do that. It would highly upset me. It would ruin my day. He did anyway. I know I said I wasn't going to do it. So is this a bad sign? Yeah, it's the sign that you ought to undo those wedding vows as quickly as you can, by whatever methodology you can. Because if this is what happens 5 minutes after the wedding, or an hour after, whenever you get your whole thing set up to do the whole wedding cake thing, if this is what happens right away in the beginning of your marriage, when the day is supposed to be the most beautiful and the sweetest day of all, if this is what happens then, can you imagine what's going to be happening in the house when you're not looking so good? When he comes home from work and he's in a bad mood, when you come home from work and nobody's in a good mood, the children are irritating the crap out of you. I mean, 10 years into a marriage, you can see people saying, I'm going to throw this cake in your face. Okay, I'll give you a little break there. That's when people start throwing dishes, smack, because they've had years together where they struggled through different things. Hopefully they're understanding each other, that this is a growth process, and they're in it for life, and they care about each other, and they're going to have their ups and downs, but they're going to make, but you can sort of understand it 10 years in. But 10 minutes in, that's the way you're starting your marriage, by being disrespectful and cruel. It's only going to go downhill from there. It really is. It's only going to downhill from there. And if that's what's happening right away, you should be thinking, I made a mistake. I want to annul this marriage. If I can annul this marriage, I want out, because I don't trust him anymore. Because if he can't even get through the wedding day being respectful and kind and loving and doing things, and he was willing to do things that humiliate me on day one, this is not going to go well. It's not. And again, I will say to everybody, if you're getting married, your grandkids are getting married, somebody you love is getting married, tell them, have you waited the 2 years to find out whether this is the kind of person who will smash cake in your face on your wedding day? Or is this a person who would never consider doing such a horrific thing? You want the latter, not the former, okay? Because you're going to have a life together. You don't want to start it off with someone who doesn't respect you. And that's what it is, doing something like that. Unless I say you're that weird 10% where you're kind of like a bunch of comedians and it's all you're doing some funny, jokey thing. I'll let those 10% of people over there. But the rest of people, if the groom smashes cake into the face of the bride, it's usually a very bad sign. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this. If you've been to a wedding where you've seen this, if you've been the one who had the cake smashed in the face, put your comments below. If you're the groom who smashed people in the face, your wife, your new wife in the face with, I don't know if you'll put any comment below, but I'd be curious. Anyway, thank you for being here. Again, like and subscribe to the channel. And just eat the cake on a plate. Okay? Thanks.